Hello and welcome everyone to the March 26th edition of Sidereal Insights Astro Update. Every month what we do is we explore the astrology of the current planetary transits across the heavens from a Western sidereal perspective. And so it's a little bit different from a lot of astrology that you might be familiar with. But a fascinating way of approaching looking at astrological transits and astrology in general from a sidereal perspective. And if you're not in the Sidereal Insights Astrology group, I invite you to join if you're interested in learning more about sidereal astrology, especially Western sidereal astrology. It's not quite like Vedic astrology. It's not quite like traditional Western tropical astrology. It's kind of a blend of kind of a little bit like neither one of them in some ways. And y'all, good to have you on. Hi, Sarah. I'm going to wave right back at you, but welcome to Sidereal Insights. So if you don't know, and we will talk a little bit about how the current transits might be touching on things in your chart, planets or points in your sidereal natal chart. If you don't know your sidereal natal placements, there's a free calculator where you just key in your birth information and it'll give you a chart of your sidereal planetary and personal point placements. But I'm Phaedra. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Phaedra. I'm the astrologer and the artist of Mystic Physick Astrology, and I use Western sidereal astrology in my practice to help you reconnect with your soul purpose and to remember why you came. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in the day-to-day details of life that it's easy to forget why the heck we're here to begin with. So my aim with the broadcast is always to provide guidance on how we can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to affect our lives in a positive way. And so what we're going to do today is kind of talk a little bit about late March and early April. And it could be a tumultuous couple of weeks with some of the transits that we have going on and the fact that we are currently in Mercury retrograde. Jupiter stationed retrograde early in the month of March on the 8th in sidereal Libra. And what we talked about on the last broadcast is how this is a 4.5 month long opportunity for a do-over on whatever major projects you have going on in the house that Libra occupies in your natal chart, especially in terms of how you're approaching your own personal growth and expansion in that house, and in terms of expanding your knowledge, right? So be aware of that. That's a longer term transit, and we may touch on that a couple of times over the course of the coming 4 months. Well, that's going on. Mercury retrograde, though, just stationed retrograde on the 22nd, and what this is doing while Mercury's retrograde in sidereal Pisces is triggering the revealing of hidden information. So secrets can come to light under this transit. Private dealings, if you have dirty laundry, expect that there's a chance it could be aired in some way. We're seeing some of that on the news. There's a lot of information coming to light from a lot of different places on a lot of different topics in current news cycles too, as we can see. So things like confession or secrets coming out are going to be a theme of that transit. Now Mercury retrograde himself only lasts about 3 weeks. Mercury normally takes about 3 weeks to transit a sign. What this means is that we will have Mercury in sidereal Pisces for almost a 10-week long period. And Mercury is not well placed in Pisces. He's the planet of communication. Pisces is the sign of secrecy and secrets. And the two don't necessarily go well together, those two concepts. So be careful if you have things that you need to keep confidential and personal during the next, I would say the next 7 weeks or so, maybe longer. Be very careful how you communicate, to whom you communicate, whether you communicate at all. If you have things that need to be kept confidential, perhaps keep them under wraps and keep them to yourself until after Mercury has left Pisces. But like I said, confession can be a theme of that experience. So can scandal in some ways, especially while we have Venus there, although Venus just left or is leaving Pisces today for Aries. But like I was saying, it's a 10-week long transit and it will be kind of challenging the whole way through. We're part of the way into that, but we still have a ways to go, about 7 more weeks to go. Today Venus moves into Aries, and Venus is not strongly placed in Aries. That's a 3.5 week long visit where ego and vanity might come up. Maybe a little bit less ego, maybe a little bit more vanity, but we're very wrapped up in appearances. And in some ways, there's a level of competition that may be brought into that. Now, that's not always healthy, so keep that in mind over the coming 3.5 weeks. If you see, you know, or feel or experience any kind of competition or aggression or conflict around self-expression, around appearance and image, especially, remember to do your best not to get caught up in that, especially if it's expressing in a negative or, you know, somewhat less than positive manner. Don't get caught up in it if you can at all help it, because it can be detrimental and it may not work out in your favor if you do allow yourself to get caught up in those sorts of what's the word I want here? Those sorts of energies, I guess we should say, like, for lack of a better term. I'm sure something will come to me after the broadcast and then we'll chuckle about it. So don't be concerned. Don't get wrapped up in keeping up appearances, okay? So you might be tempted to in the coming 3 weeks, but try not to let that be too much of an influence on your decisions, on your behaviors, on your actions. We do have the potential for surprises coming up here in a couple of days on the 28th. But on the 31st, this is where I really kind of want to focus a little more time. We have a blue moon, a full moon in Sidereal Virgo coming up on the 31st, and we will have our full moon releasing practice at 7:30 p.m. in the Sidereal Insights Facebook group on that day. Join us there, and we'll do our little releasing practice, which is really enjoyable. But what this is an opportunity to kind of reap or harvest from the efforts that you began about 6 months ago when we had our new moon in Virgo. So this is going back to last October now. There was an opportunity that came up for you back then, or a project that you started, an undertaking that you began, especially one that is detail-oriented or around organization or productivity or any kind of like analysis. This is the time to finish up that project. So you're going to have the 10 days following our full moon on the 31st to be doing all your wrap up on that project or those things, whichever it is that you need to address. Now, that's getting into the beginning of April, which can also be a little bit challenging time, especially for certain sun signs. Thanks for jumping back on with me. Sorry we lost you there. But thanks for coming back to the broadcast. So the month of April, so it opens hot on the heels of the full moon on the 31st, right? And this is a full moon in detail-oriented Virgo. It's a sensible full moon, right? It's a very practical full moon. But it's coming right into some other transits that are going to be kind of choppy and difficult to navigate. And we will touch on those in a little bit more detail in just a few minutes, and we'll touch on them specifically by rising and sun sign, and I'll give you a little bit of a tip to how you can figure out if those particular transits in early April are going to affect you, directly at all. But next month we're also going to see 2 more planets shift gears. So right now we have Jupiter and Mercury retrograde. Next month we're going to have Saturn and Pluto retrograde. Just about the same time that Mercury is going direct. So we'll gain Mercury direct, which will be a nice change of pace, but we're going to lose strength from Saturn and Pluto at nearly the same time. And of course, like I said, we do have Jupiter retrograde. So we'll be operating with these 3 kind of mid to outer planets in retrograde state. So things are still going to be a little slow as we move through the summer, which is fine. That's something that we can use to our advantage. And we'll look at ways that we can do that. But watch for that as we come through the month of April for Saturn and Pluto to reverse course. And we will talk a little bit more about those 2 retrogrades on the April 9th broadcast of Astro Update. But the first 10 days of April, these challenges that we're going to need to navigate. So for Aries Sun and Rising, particularly on the 2nd, we have Mars and Saturn conjunct. Now, Capricorn Sun and Rising will feel that as well, because Saturn rules that sun or rising sign. But Aries especially, and when Mars and Saturn tend to beat heads, Saturn tends to win, right? Saturn is the stronger of the 2 in a lot of ways. But watch for how this can play out. We could be dealing with some kind of conflict or some kind of obstacle limitation may come up for those of you who have Aries Sun or Aries Rising. This is about thwarted desire, things that we want to do, but we're being prevented from doing in some way, okay? Gemini and Virgo, you're going to be affected on the 5th when we have Mercury square Saturn, and then Leo closer to the 10th when we have Sun square Pluto. But keep in mind that because these aspects involve the personal planets Mars, Mercury, and the Sun, everyone may potentially feel these transits in some way because they do involve the personal planets. Now, what you can do is go to astro.com, which is a website that I love, and look up your transit to natal chart using their chart calculator for those 3 days, April 2nd, April 5th, and April 10th, to look for contacts to your natal planets or points, either from the Saturn-Mars conjunction on the 2nd, the Mercury square Saturn on the 5th, or Sun square Pluto on the 10th. So those planets, those dates, just go to Astro. You can enter in your birth data and pull it with transits and look to see if the planets involved in those transits are aspecting anything significant in your natal chart. And if they are, that's a clue that you may be very directly affected on the days that those transits are exact or leading up to them. Okay, so I would warn you, please do that, and do that early on so that you kind of know what's coming in the first 10 days of April, because that can be tough to navigate. Like I said, Mars conjunct Saturn, this is about thwarted desire, almost like thwarted will, but thwarted desire. Don't butt heads with mentors, don't butt heads with father figures, bosses. Danielle says, great, Saturn and Mars conjunct my natal moon April 1st. Happy April Fools to you, Danielle. I don't envy you there. I really don't. However, there's something to consider there. Mars governing surgeons and surgery, and Saturn governing bones. So you may actually see that, given your situation, might actually help move things forward. But let's keep an eye on that, and let's follow up on what you do experience on the 1st and 2nd of April. Okay? Mercury square Saturn. So this is more about sorrowful news, sad news, challenging news, news of loss or hardship could come up with this kind of a transit, or it can also express as difficulty making yourself heard. Okay? You might have a hard time making your voice heard by other people during a Mercury square Saturn transit. And so this one, like I said, is especially applicable to Gemini Sun and Rising and Virgo Sun and Rising, with it involving Mercury, the ruler of both Gemini and Virgo. And then finally on the 10th, Sun square Pluto. This is about power struggles. Okay, so this is about conflicts of will, about challenges to authority. Okay, so watch for more on that front at the 10th, and if you have Leo Sun or Rising, you may want to pay attention to that date and double check and see if either the Sun or Pluto is going to interact with your natal chart at astro.com. Okay, so this is one where you don't necessarily, you want to be careful about how you challenge authority. I mean, you may need to, but you want to be careful about how you approach that, especially if this is an authority of some type whose assistance that you need. So keep that in mind as we progress through the first part of April. Now, closer to mid-month on the 14th, we're going to have the Sun move into Aries. It's going to start essentially the spring season, although we're in the spring season right now while the Sun is in Pisces. It's going to mark the beginning of birthday month for those of you who are born under the sign of the Ram, and happy birthday to you. And then just after the Sun makes its ingress into Aries, we're going to have the new moon in Aries at the same time that Mercury stations direct. So this is going to be interesting new moon. We'll want to kind of tiptoe carefully navigating this new moon, because Mercury is really unpredictable on the beginning and ends of his retrograde when he's stationary. He's very powerful and very unpredictable on those days. So it may not be the best time to actually make our initiations, even though that's what we usually use the new moon to do. But it's well situated as a new moon in that you will be able to make an initiation in the days just following while we navigate Pluto and Saturn's retrogrades and still kind of be outside of that retrograde energy just as Mercury is starting to gain speed. It's not particularly ideal, but it's better than some new moons that we could have, especially considering it's a new moon in Aries. It's a very action-oriented new moon. It's very much a new moon about what do we want to get done. Okay, so keep in mind the 15th is going to be kind of a critical date with both of those going on. Mercury stationing direct is going to be tricky to navigate that while we have Saturn and then Pluto retrograde. But we'll get there, and we'll talk more about that on the 9th, on how we can step our way through those particular astrological events. But that new moon on the 15th is going to activate our drive to do things, our desire to make progress. We're going to be inspired to act, especially in pursuit of our dreams. And we might even be feeling kind of on fire for that inner purpose, right? Ready to take on and transform the world. And we're seeing some of that a little bit now even. But watch for that to ramp up at the new moon next month. And we, like I said, we'll talk more about that on the 9th, and we'll talk more about that the night of the new moon when we do our intention setting. I have a few announcements before we jump off. Saturday, of course, the full moon on the 31st. Our live stream will be at 7:30 p.m. in the Sidereal Insights group here on Facebook. Also, April horoscopes, the monthly overview with short reports and the full horoscopes by sign are available on the website at MystickPhysick.com. If you are a subscriber, if you have signed up for advanced access to the monthly horoscopes, you can read those right now. You don't need to wait. And that way, you know, if you want to do some planning for April right now before we get to the end of the month, you can do that. You'll just want to sign up for either a monthly or an annual subscription, and you will get the first 2 weeks free. Or you could wait and read the full horoscopes by sign and the April overview plus short reports on the 1st of April. They'll be free to the public on the 1st. And then, of course, we'll have the May horoscopes and the overview coming up early April so that you'll be able to get a jump start on your May planning if you need to. And then last but not least, our YouTube channel is all set up. So please subscribe if you like, and please, I invite you to like and share this video. If you know someone that you think would benefit from watching the video, feel free to tag them in the comments. And if you want to be able to catch our videos on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm going to double check that we don't have any comments or questions coming from the Sidereal Insights group. So far, I believe we've caught all of them. I'm going to double check here on the broadcast. And it looks like we're all right in the group as well. So we'll just leave it right there. We'll wrap it up, and I will keep an eye on the feed throughout the remainder of the day and the coming days. So if there are questions that come up, or if anyone would like clarification on any of our current sidereal transits, please ask away in the questions, and I'd be happy to answer. Thanks so much for watching Sidereal Insights Astro Update for February 26th, 2018. Excuse me, March 26th, 2018. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.